The stars of Avelora twinkled like diamonds scattered across a canvas of deep purple. Kai had seen stars before. He'd grown up gazing at Earth's night sky, but nothing quite like this. The constellations here formed patterns he couldn't recognize, and some stars pulsed with colors that shouldn't be possible according to the physics he knew. "First time on Avelora?" asked a voice behind him. Kai spun around, nearly dropping his identification cube in the process. The immigration line at the spaceport stretched endlessly before him, filled with creatures of various shapes, sizes, and colors. The voice belonged to a humanoid figure with silver-toned skin and violet eyes that seemed to shimmer with their own internal light. "That obvious, huh?" Kai smiled sheepishly, trying to mask his nervousness. "The way you're gawking at our sky says it all," she replied with a small smile. "I'm Zura. I guide newcomers through their first days here." "Kai," he replied, extending his hand in the Earth custom before realizing his mistake. "Sorry, I don't know the proper greeting here." Zara laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Your Earth custom is fine. We're quite adaptable here." She touched his outstretched hand briefly, and Kai felt a slight tingle, like a mild electric current. "The biometric scanner at immigration might give you trouble, though. They're calibrated for Avalorian biology." As if on cue, Kai's turn at the immigration counter arrived. He stepped forward, placed his palm on the glowing panel, and watched as red symbols flashed across the screen. The immigration officer, a stern-faced Avalorian with deep blue markings across his temples, frowned. "Incompatible biometric signature. Entry denied." Kai's heart sank. After months of preparation, paperwork, and a journey that had taken weeks, he was going to be turned away at the border. "Wait." Zara stepped forward, addressing the officer in a language Kai couldn't understand. Her tone was firm yet respectful. After a brief back and forth, she placed her palm on a secondary scanner and nodded to Kai. "What's happening?" he whispered. "I'm vouching for you. It's a sponsorship of sorts," she explained quietly. "My family has certain privileges here." The officer's demeanor changed immediately. He nodded deferentially to Zara and processed Kai's entry permit without further complaint. "Thank you," Kai said as they walked away from the counter. "I don't know what I would have done if—" "Don't mention it." Zara cut him off with a wave of her hand. "But now you'll need a medical scan. It's standard procedure for off-worlders, especially those who haven't been genetically optimized for interplanetary travel." She led him through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked, the walls sometimes transparent, offering breathtaking views of the city beyond. Spires of crystal and living material rose toward the sky, connected by bridges that appeared too delicate to support weight. The medical bay was a circular chamber with equipment unlike anything Kai had seen before. Instead of the cold, clinical atmosphere of Earth hospitals, this place felt alive. The examination table pulsed gently, as though breathing. "Zara, is that you?" A voice called from across the room. 3 women entered, each bearing a striking resemblance to Zara, but with distinct differences. The tallest had hair that seemed to float around her head like a silver cloud and wore a uniform with military precision. The second had intricate tattoos crawling up her arms, glowing faintly beneath her skin. The third was slightly shorter than Zara, with eyes that shifted color like opals catching light. "Ria, Mayo, Talisa," Zara greeted them, tension suddenly evident in her posture. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Clearly," said the tallest, Ria, her gaze fixing on Kai with the intensity of a laser scanner. "Who is this?" "Kai from Earth. I'm sponsoring his visit," Zara explained, her voice betraying no emotion despite the sudden tension. The 3 sisters exchanged meaningful glances. "Earth?" Mayo, the one with the glowing tattoos, raised an eyebrow. "Their gravity is so weak. Look at his muscle density." Talisa, the one with the color-shifting eyes, circled Kai like a scientist examining a specimen. "His neural patterns must be simple, too. No complex adaptations." Kai felt his face grow hot. He'd faced prejudice before as an engineer working off-world, but this felt different, more personal, more dismissive. "He's stronger than he looks," Zara said defensively. "And intelligence doesn't require genetic modification." Ria's laugh was sharp and short. You vouch for him. You know what that means, don't you? If he fails to meet standards, it reflects on you, on all of us. I know our traditions, Zara replied coolly. The sisters began to leave, but Zara caught Kai's arm and whispered, just loud enough for her sisters to hear, "My sisters think you're too weak. For us, prove them wrong tonight." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Kai swallowed hard as the three sisters paused, turned to look at him with varying degrees of skepticism, and then departed. What just happened? Kai asked when they were alone again. Zara's expression was unreadable. I've invited you to the celestial compatibility rite. It's complicated, but if you want to stay on Avalora without constant scrutiny, you'll need to pass. Pass what exactly? A series of trials that prove you're, she searched for the right word, compatible with our way of life. And if I don't, Zara's violet eyes met his with unexpected intensity. Then I lose face for vouching for you, and you get deported immediately. She checked her wrist device, which projected symbols Kai couldn't read. I have to go. Meet me at the Central Plaza at dusk. Don't be late. With that, she was gone, leaving Kai standing alone in the alien medical bay, wondering what kind of diplomatic incident he had stumbled into. The Central Plaza of Avalora's capital city was a marvel of bioengineering. What appeared from a distance to be cobblestones were actually living organisms that illuminated gently as feet passed over them, creating rippling patterns of light. Market stalls lined the perimeter, offering wares that defied Kai's understanding. Living jewelry that changed color based on the wearer's mood, memory crystals that could store sensory experiences rather than just images, and food that seemed to rearrange itself on the plate. Kai wandered through the marketplace, trying to make sense of his surroundings while keeping an eye out for anything that might help him prepare for the mysterious rite Zara had mentioned. First day jitters, A gravelly voice interrupted his thoughts. The speaker was humanoid, but with a distinctly non-human quality, skin textured like bark and eyes too large for his face. He extended a hand. Elliot, former trader from Proxima, current exile by choice. Kai shook the offered hand. Kai, engineer from Earth, current. I'm not sure what I am, actually. Elliot chuckled. Let me guess. Ran into immigration trouble, got bailed out by a beautiful Avalorian, and now you're in over your head? That's disturbingly accurate. Happens more often than you'd think. The Avalorians love their rituals and tests. Makes them feel superior to keep the rest of us jumping through hoops. Elliot gestured for Kai to follow him to a small stall selling what looked like glowing liquid in transparent containers. Let me buy you a Pulmova. It'll help with the altitude adjustment. Kai accepted the drink cautiously. It tasted like honeyed tea with an electric aftertaste that made his scalp tingle pleasantly. So, Elliot continued, lowering his voice, which house claimed you? House. The family that sponsored you. Avalorian society is structured around ancient houses with different specializations. Some focus on genetic engineering, others on cosmic navigation, warfare, diplomacy, each with their own brutal initiation rites for outsiders. Kai tried to recall anything Zara had said about her family. She didn't mention a house name, but her sisters are named Ria, Mayo, and Talisa. Elliot nearly spat out his drink. The Zyrith sisters? Stars above, man. You're in the deep end. He glanced around nervously before continuing. House Zyrith is practically royalty here. They're the keepers of the old ways, and they don't take kindly to outsiders. Especially not. He gestured vaguely at Kai's entire body. Unmodified ones. What exactly is this celestial compatibility rite she mentioned? It's an ancient tradition. When an outsider wants to form a bond, business, diplomatic, romantic, whatever, with an Avalorian of high standing, they must prove their worthiness through 3 trials: body, mind, and spirit. Elliot's expression grew serious. And with the Zyrith sisters as your judges, they'll make it as difficult as possible. Why would they do that? Because they can. Because tradition demands it. Because they believe only the strongest connections should be formed. Elliot shrugged. Take your pick. Kai's mind raced. But I just met Zara today. I'm not trying to form any kind of bond. I just needed help getting through immigration. By accepting her sponsorship, you've already begun the process, Elliot explained. In their culture, such an act creates a responsibility on both sides. She's responsible for your behavior here, and you're responsible for not making her look foolish for choosing you. What happens at this rite? It varies by house, but generally, you'll face physical challenges to test your strength and endurance, puzzles to test your intelligence and adaptability, and finally, a spiritual or emotional assessment that's supposedly impossible to fake. Elliot drained his drink. The Xyraths are known for making these particularly challenging. He groaned. I should have just turned around when they denied my entry. Too late now. If you fail to show up, it's worse than failing the trials. It brings shame to your sponsor. Elliot stood. You'd better get ready. You'll need appropriate attire. What's wrong with what I'm wearing? Kai glanced down at his standard issue Earth travel suit. Elliot laughed. Everything. Come on, I know a place. The place turned out to be a small shop tucked between two larger establishments. Inside, garments of impossible fabrics hung from displays that seemed to be made of living tree branches. An elderly Avalorian with eyes so pale they were almost white greeted them with a bow. My friend here needs ceremonial attire for a Xyrath rite, Elliot explained. The shopkeeper's eyebrows rose in surprise, but she nodded and began pulling items from various displays. The clothing she selected seemed to respond to her touch, changing color slightly. Try these, she said, handing a bundle to Kai. They're synced to your biometrics. In a changing area, separated by a curtain of what felt like liquid glass, Kai discovered what she meant. The moment he put on the garments, a tunic-like top and fitted trousers, they began to adjust to his body temperature. The color shifted subtly from deep blue to indigo as his heart rate increased with nervousness. Fascinating, he murmured, watching the fabric respond to his anxiety. When he emerged, Elliot nodded approvingly. Much better. Now you at least look like you belong at the ceremony. Any other advice? Kai asked as they left the shop, his new clothes paid for with a credit transfer that made his bank account weep. Yes. When greeting the elders, bow like this, Elliot demonstrated a peculiar bow with the right hand over the heart. And remember to say Kalamerith Voss when addressed directly by any of the sisters. Kai tried to repeat the phrase, but his pronunciation must have been off because Elliot winced. Maybe just stick to nodding respectfully, he suggested. And whatever you do, don't show fear. They can literally smell it. Enhanced olfactory senses. It's like blood in the water. Kai's personal communication device buzzed with an incoming message. The text glowed in the air before him. Prepare yourself for the celestial compatibility rite. Central Plaza, Western Archway, at the rising of the third moon. Formal acknowledgement required. Kai looked at Elliot, panic rising. That's in 2 hours. Then we'd better continue your crash course in Avalorian customs, Elliot said grimly. Starting with how not to accidentally insult someone's genetic lineage while trying to compliment their hair. As they walked, Kai wondered if he should just make a run for the spaceport and try to book passage back to Earth. But something about Zara's confidence in him, despite her sister's dismissal, made him hesitate. That, and the fact that he'd spent nearly all his savings getting here in the first place. All right, he sighed. Teach me everything I need to know. By the time the third moon began its slow ascent into Avalora's star-scattered sky, Kai stood beneath the western archway of Central Plaza, dressed in his new attire and reciting Elliot's crash course instructions under his breath. The bioresponsive fabric of his ceremonial clothes had settled into a deep purple color, which Elliot had assured him was a positive sign. It indicated determination rather than panic. The archway itself was a living structure, a massive arch of what appeared to be crystalline wood that emitted soft illumination. As the third moon, a small, quick-moving satellite with a bluish tinge, rose fully into view, the arch began to pulse with light in synchronicity with the moonbeams. Zara appeared suddenly at his side, as if materializing from the shadows. Her attire was formal, a silver-white dress that seemed to contain constellations within its fabric, stars shifting as she moved. You came, she said, sounding both pleased and surprised. And in proper attire, no less. I had help, Kai admitted. From Elliot of Proxima, I'm guessing. He has a soft spot for lost newcomers. Her lips curved in a small smile. Follow me, and remember, whatever happens, do not show weakness. She led him through the archway, which seemed to bend and reshape itself as they passed through. Beyond lay a sight that took Kai's breath away. What had appeared from the outside to be a simple continuation of the plaza was actually an enormous bio-arena. A circular space surrounded by tiered seating that appeared to be growing directly from the ground. The seats were filled with Avalorians, their silver skin and varied eye colors creating a tapestry of gleaming light under the three moons. At the center of the arena stood Zara's three sisters, each positioned at a point that formed a perfect triangle. Rhea, the eldest, wore ceremonial armor that caught the moonlight like polished metal. Mio's glowing tattoos were more prominent now, creating intricate patterns across her exposed skin. Talisa stood with serene poise, her color-shifting eyes scanning the crowd. As Zara led Kai toward the center, the ground beneath their feet began to glow, leaving illuminated footprints that lingered briefly before fading. When they reached the center of the triangle formed by the three sisters, Zara stepped aside, leaving Kai alone in the middle. Kai of Earth, Rhea's voice carried easily across the arena despite her not appearing to raise it. You stand before us as one seeking compatibility with House Zyrith through our sister Zara's sponsorship. Do you understand the significance of this right? Kai swallowed hard. I understand that it is an honor and a responsibility, he replied, hoping his voice sounded steadier than he felt. The first trial is the trial of body, Rhea continued. Your physical form must prove capable of withstanding the challenges of our world. At her words, the ground beneath Kai's feet began to shift. The illuminated circle where he stood separated from the rest of the arena floor, rising slightly to form a platform. Around him, the arena transformed. What had been a flat surface now featured obstacles, moving pillars, sections that appeared to be made of living vines, and areas where the ground itself seemed to undulate like water. You were the pulse monitor, Mayo approached, holding what looked like a thin silver band. It will measure your vitals and ensure no enhancements are used. Kai allowed her to place the band around his wrist. It tightened automatically, conforming perfectly to his skin. Immediately, he felt a slight tingling sensation as it calibrated to his biosignature. The challenge is simple, Rhea explained. Complete the course before the third moon reaches its zenith. Touch the ember crystal at the far end, and return to this starting point. Kai looked at the obstacle course that had formed before him. It didn't look impossible, but it was clearly designed to test limits beyond what an unmodified human might normally face. Begin, Talisa said softly, and the words seemed to reverberate through the arena. Kai took a deep breath and stepped forward. Immediately, the ground beneath his feet became less stable, requiring him to adjust his balance constantly. He moved cautiously at first, testing each section before committing his weight. The first real obstacle was a series of moving pillars that rose and fell unpredictably. Kai watched their pattern for a few moments, then timed his dash between them. He nearly made it through unscathed, but the last pillar caught him off guard, clipping his shoulder and sending him stumbling. He recovered quickly, aware of the murmurs from the crowd. Next came a section where the ground formed what looked like stepping stones across a pool of softly glowing liquid. Kai tested the first stone with his foot. It held firm. He jumped to it, then to the next, gaining confidence with each successful landing, until the fifth stone began to sink. Kai leapt quickly to the next, but two began to submerge. He realized with a start that they were timed. Each stone would support weight for only a few seconds before sinking. He increased his pace, sometimes jumping to a stone just as the previous one disappeared completely beneath the luminescent pool. By the time he reached the other side, his heart was pounding and sweat beaded on his forehead. The pulse monitor around his wrist glowed brighter, no doubt recording his elevated heart rate. The next section featured what appeared to be living vines that moved with purpose, reaching out as if to ensnare anyone passing through. Kai hesitated, then remembered Elliot's words about Avalorian plant life, responding to emotions. He tried to calm himself, breathing deeply, and approached with deliberate, confident movements. To his surprise, the vine seemed less aggressive, moving aside enough to create narrow pathways. It wasn't easy. Several times he had to twist awkwardly to avoid being caught, but he made it through without being trapped. The final stretch before the ember crystal was a series of translucent barriers that seemed to be made of energy rather than physical matter. Kai approached cautiously, touching the first one. It resisted slightly, then allowed his hand to pass through with a sensation like moving through honey. He pushed forward, his entire body now moving through the resistant energy field. It was exhausting, like swimming against a strong current. Each barrier seemed stronger than the last, requiring more effort to penetrate. By the time he reached the ember crystal, a floating gem that pulsed with internal fire, Kai was breathing heavily. He touched it with trembling fingers, and it flared brightly in response. Half complete, came Ria's voice from across the arena. Now return. Kai turned, dismayed to see that the obstacles had rearranged themselves. The path back would be different, possibly more difficult. The third moon was visibly higher in the sky now. Time was passing quickly. He set off again, this time facing swinging pendulums that required precise timing to avoid, followed by a section where the ground became elastic, absorbing energy from his steps and making forward progress incredibly difficult. It was like running through deep sand, each step requiring twice the effort for half the distance. As he struggled through the elastic zone, Kai noticed the crowd's reaction changing. What had started as skeptical murmurs were becoming interested observations. He caught fragments of conversation. Surprising endurance for an Earthling. No genetic optimizations at all, yet he persists. Look at his adaptability. See how he's changed his gait to compensate. The final obstacle on the return journey was a narrow bridge that appeared solid, but rippled like water when weight was placed upon it. Kai nearly fell several times, arms windmilling for balance, but managed to stay upright through sheer determination. When he finally stumbled back onto the starting platform, the third moon was just touching its zenith. He had completed the course with moments to spare. Breathing heavily, hands on his knees, Kai looked up to see all three sisters watching him with expressions ranging from Ria's grudging acknowledgement to Talisa's open surprise. The trial of body is complete, Ria announced formally. The candidate has demonstrated acceptable physical capability. Acceptable. Not impressive or exceptional, but acceptable was enough. Kai straightened, trying not to show how utterly exhausted he felt. Mayo stepped forward next. The trial of mind will commence after a brief recovery period. Attendants approached, offering Kai a beverage that tasted like nothing on earth, but immediately began to restore his energy. As he drank, Zara caught his eye from where she stood at the edge of the arena. She gave him a small nod that somehow conveyed both approval and encouragement. The recovery period was brief, just long enough for Kai's breathing to return to normal and the worst of the muscle fatigue to subside. Then Mayo approached, her glowing tattoos pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to match his heartbeat. The mind must be adaptable, quick, and resourceful, she explained. Our biosystems require users who can think in patterns beyond simple linear logic. At her gesture, a holographic interface materialized in the air before Kai. It displayed complex, interconnected symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves continuously. This is a standard Avalorian biocode challenge, Mayo continued. Identify the pattern, predict the next sequence, and complete the circuit. You have until the second moon reaches alignment with the third. Kai stared at the symbols, initially seeing nothing but random arrangements. But as he continued to observe, he began to notice subtle relationships between certain elements, how they moved in response to others, how colors shifted according to proximity. It reminded him of programming languages he'd worked with on Earth, but with an organic, fluid quality that made it both more intuitive and more complex. Drawing on his engineering background, Kai began to identify algorithmic patterns within the chaos. He manipulated the interface, tracing connections between symbols, grouping related elements, and gradually bringing order to the system. The crowd had gone quiet, watching with interest as the Earth visitor tackled a challenge that many of their own youngsters struggled with during their education. Even Ria's stern expression had softened slightly into one of curiosity. Kai lost track of time as he worked, completely absorbed in the puzzle. The symbols began to make sense to him, not just individually, but as components of a larger system. He recognized it as a form of biological programming language, likely used to communicate with the living technology that seemed omnipresent on Avelora. With moments to spare before the celestial deadline, Kai input the final sequence. The holographic display flashed bright blue, then collapsed into a single pulsing point of light that expanded into a complex three-dimensional model, a perfect representation of the 3 moons of Avelora in their current alignment. The trial of mind is complete, Mayo announced, a note of surprise evident in her voice. The candidate has demonstrated advanced problem-solving capability. Murmurs swept the arena again, louder this time. Kai caught phrases like unexpected aptitude and natural affinity for biologic. He's not as simple as he appears, Mayo admitted to her sisters, though her voice carried enough for Kai to hear. His neural pathways show remarkable flexibility for an unmodified human. Before the final trial could begin, a commotion at the entrance to the arena drew everyone's attention. A group of Avalorians in formal attire that glowed with an internal blue light strode purposefully toward the center of the arena. Their leader, a tall figure with facial markings that extended from his temples down his neck, carried what appeared to be an official insignia. In the name of the Supreme Guard and by order of the Royal Council, the leader announced, his voice amplified throughout the arena. This ceremony is suspended pending investigation. Ria stepped forward, her posture rigid with tension. On what grounds, Guardian Vex? A formal complaint has been lodged, Vex replied. The Earth visitor has not been properly registered as an official representative of his planet. Without such designation, participation in a house ritual constitutes a breach of protocol. The crowd's murmurs turned concerned. Kai looked to Zara, who had gone pale. This is unprecedented interference, Ria argued, though Kai noticed she didn't seem entirely displeased by the interruption. The rite is already underway. Nevertheless, the law is clear, Vex insisted. The Earth visitor must be detained for questioning until his status can be properly assessed. 2 members of the Supreme Guard moved toward Kai. Zara suddenly stepped between them, her voice ringing clear across the arena. I invoke the right of completion. By ancient law, any rite that has passed the midway point must be allowed to conclude before judgment is rendered. Vex frowned. That law has not been invoked in generations, but remains valid. Talisa spoke up unexpectedly. As keeper of traditional law for House Zyrith, I confirm my sister's invocation is legitimate. A tense silence fell over the arena. Finally, Vex inclined his head slightly. Very well. The final trial may proceed, but the Supreme Guard will remain to witness. At its conclusion, regardless of outcome, the Earth visitor will accompany us for formal review. The guard stepped back, but remained present, their vigilant posture suggesting they were prepared to act at any moment. Kai's momentary triumph over the first 2 trials evaporated, replaced by the realization that his troubles were far from over. Talisa approached him, her opal eyes constantly shifting colors. The final trial is the trial of soul, she explained softly. It is the most important and the most difficult to falsify. She gestured, and attendants brought forward what looked like a crystalline headpiece. It was delicate, formed of intertwining strands that reminded Kai of neural pathways. This is the spirit weave, Talisa continued. It creates a direct connection between minds, allowing us to experience the true nature of another's inner self, their emotions, memories, core values. No deception is possible while wearing it. Kai stared at the device with growing apprehension. The thought of having his innermost thoughts and feelings exposed to strangers, to these judgmental sisters and an entire arena of Avalorians, made his stomach clench with anxiety. The wearer cannot selectively choose what to share, Talisa warned, as if reading his thoughts. The weave reveals all, strengths and weaknesses, courage and fears, love and resentment. Are you willing to undergo such exposure? Part of him wanted to refuse, to preserve the privacy of his mind. But he knew that would mean automatic failure. And after what Zara had risked to defend him, how could he give up now? He glanced at Zara, who watched him with an intensity that suggested she understood exactly what he was facing. Something in her expression gave him courage. "I'm willing," he said, his voice steadier than he expected. Talisa placed the spirit weave on his head. It adjusted automatically, the crystalline strands extending to touch key points on his scalp and temples. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the world exploded into sensation. Kai gasped as his consciousness seemed to expand beyond the boundaries of his body. He could feel the presence of others, primarily Talisa, who guided the connection, but also Ria and Mayo, and hovering at the periphery, Zara. And they could feel him, not just his current emotions, but everything that made him who he was. Memories flooded to the surface. His childhood on Earth, the ridicule he'd faced for preferring books to sports, his struggle to prove himself in the competitive field of interplanetary engineering, the loneliness of always feeling slightly out of step with those around him. With these memories came the emotions attached to them, the hurt of rejection, the pride of accomplishment against odds, the wonder he felt when first seeing the stars from orbit, the persistent hope that somewhere in the vastness of space, he might find where he truly belonged. Kai felt tears on his cheeks, but couldn't bring himself to care about this display of vulnerability. The spirit weave was drawing out deeper truths now. His core values, his belief that understanding across differences was not just possible, but necessary, his conviction that strength came in many forms, beyond the physical. And something else was emerging too, his growing fascination with Zara, not just her exotic beauty, but her blend of strength and compassion, the way she had stood up for him when no one else would. The bioreactive fabric of his ceremonial clothes began to glow with a deep violet light that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Around him, the arena had gone completely silent. The spirit weave amplified his consciousness enough that he could sense the collective surprise from the watching crowd. After what might have been minutes or hours, time seemed meaningless in this state. Talisa gently removed the spirit weave. As Kai's awareness contracted back to normal, he felt oddly light, as if a weight he hadn't known he was carrying had been lifted. He looked up to see Talisa's opal eyes fixed on him with newfound respect. Mio's expression had softened considerably. Even Ria, the most skeptical of the sisters, regarded him with something approaching acceptance. "The trial of soul is complete," Talisa announced, her voice gentler than before. "The candidate has demonstrated absolute authenticity. No deception was detected." A murmur of appreciation rippled through the crowd. Kai realized that what he had experienced as an invasion of privacy, the Avalorians viewed as the ultimate form of honesty, a willingness to be seen exactly as one was, without pretense or facade. Ria stepped forward, addressing the gathered witnesses. "By the traditions of House Zyrith and in accordance with the laws of Avalora, all 3 trials have been completed satisfactorily. The Earth visitor has proved compatible with our house through strength of body, mind, and soul." She turned to Guardian Vex, who had watched the proceedings with narrowed eyes. "The rite is concluded. What say you now?" Vex seemed displeased by the outcome, but bound by protocol. "The Supreme Guard acknowledges the completion of the ritual. However, the matter of proper registration remains. The Earth visitor must still accompany us for processing." Zara moved to stand beside Kai. "As a sponsor, I will accompany him," she said firmly. "As will I," Mayo added unexpectedly. "And I," said Talisa. Ria hesitated only briefly before adding, "House Zyrith stands united in this matter." Vex's expression darkened, but he nodded curtly. "Very well. Follow me." As they left the arena, Kai felt a hand slip into his. Zara walked beside him, her violet eyes meeting his with a mixture of pride and something deeper that made his heart race. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For believing in me when no one else did." Her fingers tightened around his. "You proved them wrong tonight," she said softly. Just as I knew you would. The administrative chambers of the Supreme Guard were as biologically integrated as the rest of Avaloran architecture, but with a more austere, functional aesthetic. The walls pulsed with a cool blue light that seemed designed to intimidate rather than welcome. Kai sat before a curved desk that appeared to be grown rather than built, facing Guardian Vex and two other officials. Behind him stood all four Xyrath sisters, a united front that clearly displeased Vex. The regulations are clear, Vex stated coldly. For an off-worlder to participate in house ritual, they must be registered as an official representative of their planet or hold special dispensation from the Royal Council. The law also states that personal sponsorship from a house member supersedes such requirements in cases of individual compatibility assessment. Mayo countered, her knowledge of regulations evidently extensive. Vex's eyes narrowed. That clause was intended for emergency situations or diplomatic exceptions. The language makes no such distinction, Rhea said, surprising Kai with her support. I've reviewed the text myself. There's something else at work here, Zara added, stepping forward. The timing of this complaint is too convenient. Who filed it, Guardian Vex? Was it House Nevin? A flicker of discomfort crossed Vex's face, confirming Zara's suspicion. House politics should not concern the Supreme Guard, he said stiffly. Unless the Guard is being used as a tool in those politics, Talisa observed quietly. Tension filled the room. Kai sensed he was caught in the middle of a much larger conflict than he'd realized. Something about rival houses and old grudges. May I speak? Kai asked, surprising everyone in the room. Vex regarded him with thinly veiled contempt. The Earth visitor wishes to address the council. I do, Kai said, rising to his feet. I came to Avalora as an engineer, seeking to learn from your advanced biointegration technologies. I had no knowledge of your house politics or ritualistic traditions. But tonight, I've experienced something profound, a connection and understanding that transcends our planetary differences. He looked at each of the Xyrath sisters before continuing. The trials revealed not just my capabilities, but the truth of who I am. If there's one thing I understand as an engineer, it's that truth matters. And the spirit we've showed everyone present the truth of my intentions. Iarbo no da saption, no iden agenda. Vex seemed taken aback by Kai's directness. Be that as it may, there is precedent, interrupted a new voice from the doorway. A distinguished Avalorian with elaborate silver markings that denoted great age entered the chamber. Everyone, including Vex, straightened respectfully. Elder Torin, Rhea greeted him with a formal bow. We did not expect your presence. I observed the ritual, Elder Torin said, his gaze shifting to Kai. The first Earthling to complete our oldest compatibility rite in many generations. Most impressive. He turned to Vex. The complaint from House Nevin is dismissed. Their objection stems from their failed attempt to secure an exclusive trade agreement with Earth's Southeastern Coalition last solar cycle. This is clearly retribution, not legitimate concern for protocol. Vex's face tightened, but he bowed. As you say, Elder. The Earth visitor has earned his place, Elder Torin declared. The ritual was valid, the sponsorship legitimate, and the outcome decisive. Issue him full visitor credentials immediately. Vex had no choice but to comply. Within moments, Kai's identification cube was updated with official credentials that would grant him unhindered access throughout Avalora. As they left the administrative chambers, Elder Torin fell into step beside Kai and Zara. Your performance tonight will be remembered, he told Kai. Few outsiders have shown such adaptability to our ways. Thank you for your intervention, Zara said. Elder Torin smiled knowingly. I merely upheld our traditions against political manipulation. The rest you accomplished yourselves. He nodded politely and departed, leaving Kai with the four sisters. An awkward silence followed, broken finally by Rhea. I misjudged you, she admitted, her voice serious but not unkind. Your physical form may lack our enhancements, but your spirit shows remarkable resilience. And your mind grasps patterns with surprising intuition, Mayo added. Talisa simply smiled, her opal eyes twinkling. The weave never lies. What it revealed in you was unexpected. Zara looked at her sisters with barely concealed triumph. I told you he was different. Yes, you did, Rhea conceded. Perhaps your judgment is better than we credited. She addressed Kai directly. Welcome to Ave Laura, Earth Visitor. House Zyrith acknowledges your compatibility. With that formal statement, she departed, followed by Mayo and Talisa, though the latter gave Kai a friendly nod before leaving. Alone with Zara at last, Kai felt the tension of the evening begin to dissipate, replaced by a different kind of nervous energy. So, he said, is this how you welcome all visitors to your planet? Zara laughed, the musical sound he'd found enchanting from the first moment. Only the special ones. And am I special? You proved yourself to my sisters, to the Supreme Guard, and to Elder Torin himself. Her violet eyes met his. But more importantly, you proved yourself to me. What happens now? Kai asked. Now, Zara said with a smile, the real adventure begins. In the days that followed, Avelora revealed itself to Kai in ways that ordinary visitors never experienced. With his newly granted credentials and Zara as his guide, he gained access to research facilities, cultural centers, and natural wonders that most off-worlders could only dream of seeing. The Central Plaza was transformed for a formal celebration, a recognition of Kai's successful completion of the Celestial Compatibility Rite. As the first Earth visitor to achieve such distinction in recent memory, his accomplishment had apparently become something of a sensation among the Avalorians. Kai stood at the center of the celebration, dressed in ceremonial attire even more elaborate than what he'd worn for the trials. The bioresponsive fabric now glowed with confidence rather than nervousness, shifting between deep blue and vibrant purple tones that complemented the silver threads woven throughout. You look almost Avalorian, Zara commented as she joined him, resplendent in a gown that seemed to capture starlight within its folds. Almost being the operative word, Kai replied with a smile. I still can't get the pronunciation of your traditional greetings right. You're learning quickly, she assured him. The celebration was in full swing, with Avalorians from various houses mingling in the plaza. Kai had even spotted Elliot among the guests, the trader giving him a thumbs up from across the gathering. Rhea approached, her formal military attire marking her importance within not just House Zyrith, but Avaloran society at large. The Elder Council is impressed by your adaptability, she told Kai. They've extended an invitation for you to address them regarding Earth's engineering approaches. That's quite an honor, Kai replied, momentarily stunned by the opportunity. Indeed it is, Rhea confirmed. Few off-worlders ever receive such recognition. As Rhea moved away to greet other guests, Mayo and Talisa joined them, completing the quartet of Zyrith sisters. I've been analyzing the data from your trial, Mayo said without preamble. Your problem-solving patterns are fascinating, entirely different from our approaches, yet equally effective. I'd like to study this further, with your permission. Of course, Kai agreed, flattered by her interest. Talisa's ever-changing eyes studied him thoughtfully. The spirit weave revealed something rare in you, a genuine openness to difference without fear or prejudice. That quality alone makes you valuable to our world. As the sisters conversed with Kai, a disturbance at the edge of the celebration caught their attention. Guardian Vex had returned, accompanied by several members of the Supreme Guard and a distinguished-looking Avalorian whose attire marked him as belonging to a different house. That's Sevon Nevin, Zara whispered to Kai. Head of House Nevin, our chief rivals. Sevon Nevin approached the gathering with measured steps, his expression unreadable. Vex followed slightly behind, looking pleased with himself. House Zyrith, Sevon greeted them formally. I understand congratulations are in order for your Earth visitor. Kai has completed the Celestial Compatibility Rite with distinction, Rhea replied, her posture subtly shifting to one of defense. So I've heard, Sevon said smoothly. However, new information has come to light that may call the entire process into question. A murmur ran through the crowd. Kai felt Zara tense beside him. What information? Rhea demanded. Vex stepped forward, producing an official-looking document. Evidence suggests that the Earth visitor's biometric readings were artificially enhanced during the trials. We have reason to believe he used prohibited substances to improve his performance. That's absurd, Kai protested. I didn't take anything. The readings don't lie, Vex countered. Your endurance levels during the trial of body exceeded normal human parameters by 17%. Without enhancements, such performance would be impossible. Zara moved protectively closer to Kai. This is clearly a fabrication. The pulse monitor would have detected any substances immediately. Unless they were designed to evade detection, Savant suggested. Earth has been known to develop such compounds. The accusation hung in the air, threatening to undo everything Kai had accomplished. The crowd's earlier warmth was quickly being replaced by suspicious murmurs. Mayo suddenly stepped forward. I supervised the trial of mind personally, she stated firmly. As chief bioengineer of House Zyrith, I can confirm that all readings were consistent with natural human capability, albeit at the higher end of the spectrum. And I administered the spirit weave, Talisa added. It would have revealed any deception, including the use of enhancement substances. There was none. Savant seemed unmoved. With respect to House Zyrith's expertise, this matter requires independent verification. The Supreme Guard will take custody of the Earth visitor until a full investigation can be completed. That won't be necessary, came a new voice. The crowd parted to reveal Elder Torin once again, this time accompanied by several other elders. The entire gathering immediately showed deference, bowing respectfully. The celestial compatibility rite was properly conducted and witnessed by myself and others of the Elder Council, Torin stated, his authority absolute. Furthermore, the readings in question have been independently analyzed. Another elder produced a holographic display showing complex biometric data. The Earth visitor's performance, while exceptional, falls within documented parameters for humans who have trained extensively in varied gravitational environments. Kai remembered his years working on different off-world stations with their various gravity levels, a fact he'd mentioned during his initial immigration interview, but hadn't thought particularly important. Moreover, Elder Torin continued, the Spirit Weave's findings are beyond dispute. It revealed not just absence of deception, but presence of exceptional honesty, a quality perhaps some others might emulate. His gaze shifted meaningfully to Savant and Vex. Savant's composure faltered slightly. The Elder Council has spoken, he acknowledged stiffly. House Nevin withdraws its concern. As Savant and his entourage retreated, the tension in the gathering dissipated. The celebration resumed with renewed enthusiasm, the attempted disruption only serving to make Kai's accomplishment seem more impressive. That was a close call, Kai murmured to Zara. House politics, she explained quietly. Always complicated, often dangerous. Nevin has been trying to establish exclusive trade rights with Earth for years. Your success through House Zyrith threatens their plans. I'm just an engineer, Kai protested. I'm not involved in trade negotiations. Zara smiled knowingly. You become a symbol, Kai. The first Earth visitor to complete our most sacred compatibility ritual and earn the Elder Council's approval. Whether you intended it or not, you're now part of Avalorn history and politics. The celebration continued into the night, the 3 moons of Avalora creating shifting patterns of light across the plaza. As the formal proceedings concluded, Zara led Kai to a quiet corner of the gardens that adjoined the plaza. My sisters think you're too weak for us, she said softly, echoing her word from their first meeting. But you proved them wrong tonight. And what do you think? Kai asked, his heart racing as he looked into her violet eyes. I think you've shown a different kind of strength, adaptability, resilience, honesty. Those qualities matter more on Avalora than mere physical power. She moved closer to him. They certainly matter more to me. In that moment, beneath the triple moons and surrounded by the bioluminescent flora of Avalora, Kai felt a sense of belonging he'd never experienced before. Not on Earth, not on any of the stations he'd worked. Here, standing with Zara, he had found something he hadn't even known he was searching for. What happens next? He asked. That depends, Zara replied. Your visitor credentials allow you to stay for an extended period. You could study our biointegration technologies as you originally planned. Or, or, or you could consider a more permanent arrangement. The completion of the celestial compatibility rite opens doors that would otherwise remain closed to off-worlders. Kai thought about the life he'd left behind on Earth. The fulfilling work, but the persistent feeling of being an outsider, never quite fitting in. He thought about what he'd experienced on Avalora. The challenges, certainly, but also the wonder, the connection, the sense of possibility. And he thought about Zara, her courage in sponsoring him despite her sister's doubts, her belief in him when everyone else was skeptical, the way her presence made him feel simultaneously grounded and limitless. I think I'd like to explore those open doors, he said finally. Zara's smile was radiant. Then let me show you what lies beyond them. As the celebration continued in the distance, Zara leaned closer, her silver-toned skin luminescent in the moonlight. Their lips met in a kiss that seemed to bridge worlds. Earth and Avalora, past and future, difference and commonality. When they finally parted, Kai looked up at the unfamiliar stars of Avalora's night sky and felt, for the first time, that he was exactly where he belonged. Rhea, observing from a distance, finally allowed herself a small smile of approval. Perhaps, she murmured to Mayo and Talisa, who stood beside her, our sister chose wisely after all. Indeed, Talisa agreed, her opal eyes twinkling. Sometimes the strongest connections form between the most unlikely matches. Mayo nodded thoughtfully. The Earth visitor has much to learn about our ways, but he has proven himself worthy of the opportunity. And we have much to learn from him, Rhea acknowledged, surprising her sisters with her openness. Different perspectives strengthen us all. As the three sisters watched Zara and Kai walking hand in hand beneath the triple moons, the bioarchitecture of Avalora seemed to pulse in harmony with their steps, welcoming a new chapter in the ancient history of House Cyrith, and a new connection between worlds that had once seemed too distant to bridge.